everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Bolivia Political Crossroads. This is episode number 31, if I'm not mistaken. August 29th, 2020. And I'm here with my co-host, as always, Ernesto Machicao. Good morning, Ernesto.
Good morning. Very nice to be back this week. So yeah, the last days of August.
Yeah, we're almost into September when we get some more freedom back. I'm excited.
Yep.
As they've announced just last night, or maybe it was 2 nights ago. Anyway, we've had a relatively calm week after some difficult times in the past few weeks with the bloqueos and everything, the blockades. And Santa Cruz, as I just mentioned, is going to lift a lot of the restrictions on being able to go out and for business hours and etc. Starting September 1st. So that's good news. Campaigns are starting to heat up as we near closer to the elections, and with things getting back in order a little bit, people are kind of starting to relax a little bit in terms of the pandemic and starting to remember that there is an economy that needs to be taken care of and to be rescued. So with that being said, regarding the economy, we have a guest today, Rafael Vera, a seasoned economist who I will allow to introduce himself. And we thank you very much for joining us and spending most of your Saturday morning with us. And thank you for sacrificing your sleep to join us.
Thank you, Paul.
Without further ado, adelante, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Hello, good morning. Good morning, Ernesto. Yes, I'm Rafael Vera. I'm an economist. I have a degree in economics from Bolivia, from Universidad Privada Boliviana. I also have a master's degree from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign.
Wow.
Well, thank you for inviting me to talk about economics.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. As long as we're talking about economics, right? No politics.
We can't talk, economics and politics are kind of matched.
Yeah.
We kind of try to give some insight to politicians about what's going on in the economy, what they can do to have better policies for the well-being of their population, right, of their countries. So yeah, that's about the introduction. So do you want me to start with the presentation? I have a short presentation.
That'd be great.
How Bolivia economy is doing. And let me share my screen. Okay.
There it is. Okay.
There it is. So I'm going to start just briefly about how the world economy is doing. Well, this is a picture about how the world economy was doing in October 2019. Let's see if it shares. Okay. There were some problems. You had the trade war between US and China. You have Brexit going on. You have problems in Japan about the aging population. There were some problems about the automobile industry that was shrinking their production. And also you have emerging markets such as Argentina and Brazil that were in trouble and they were trying to get out from them, right? But suddenly you have coronavirus coming in, knocking the door, right? And this just COVID-19 started in March. This is a disease that affected everybody in the world. Most countries just adopted lockdown measures worldwide. They shut down factories, they shut down economies. Only essential services were going on, right? There were some supply shortages. Some businesses were closed. As you know, gyms and restaurants everywhere in the world were closed, as well as movie theaters. And well, the response was a little bit different elsewhere, right? You have in advanced economies, families that could afford to voluntarily lock down They just way before the lockdown measures began, they decided just to stay at home because it was unsafe to stay outside. You could get sick, and also you have this had terrible effects in emerging economies. For emerging economies, they were not able advanced economies were not able to buy their products, so there was kind of weaker demand for their products, and this brought a kind of rising inequality, right? It's like some people would earn the minimum wage, they would earn the minimum income daily, and for them not going to work, it was something very, very hard for their families. They wouldn't get money for buying food or paying very basic expenses, right? And this brought a large stake of inequality. Well, and this is how the projections were like for the global economy. The IMF said about 4.9% decrease in the world economy, 8% decrease for advanced economies, and for emerging markets it was about 3%. So the effect was worldwide, right? Mm-hmm. How Bolivia is doing? Well, this is a picture of how Bolivia was doing in 30 years. We had terrible effects. I think in '92 it was about the Brazilian crisis. You had the Asian crisis. You also have the credit crunch in 2009, about the bubbles. And
right.
Yeah, but now it's kind of different. Now our economy has been slowing down since 2014, and this was due to prices, to the commodity prices, right? Fuel prices dropped a lot. As you know, Bolivia is one of the largest exporters of natural gas, and this kind of really affected us. And well, the IMF, the World Bank, and the ECLAC, SAPAL, gave us a prediction for 2020 about decrease in our economy of between 5% to 6%, right? And for them, it was likely for year 2029, this was going to rebound to 2% or to 2.9%. So they're kind of optimistic about how our economy is gonna perform. And
just a quick question for you.
Yes.
Sorry, for people who don't know, when we look at those numbers, the very the broad picture, these are measures of the formal economy. Formal economy, or does this encompass the informal sector as well? Because in Bolivia, that's a huge.
Yeah,
that's a huge
actually,
chunk
it's
of
mostly the formal
okay.
economy. Yeah.
What's on the books, basically.
Yeah.
I have a question. I have a question here.
Yes.
On the year 2020, we have no graph, right? We have no graph for there's 2018 and then 19, not 20.
Yes, there is, because those were the projections from from Central Bank and World Bank and ECLAC. 2020 is in kind of pink.
Yeah. Right.
The translucent.
So the decrease on the economy is anywhere from 5.2 to 6.2% down, right?
Yeah, recession, right.
Okay. And then the next year we're supposed to grow again, 2.9. That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, actually the World Bank is kind of, they don't give a kind of large percentage for 2021. The IMF is a forecast they had in I think it was in April. Maybe they will revise.
Right.
But the World Bank is the one that's the most recent. They published that forecast they have a very important document about how the world economy is doing. And
now, just for clarity of everybody, when the World Bank comes out with its projections and the IMF comes out with projections, they all work with the numbers of the INE, right? The Bolivian INE. They don't have their own raw numbers, right?
Yes, they use official sources.
Okay.
Yeah. And the only official source in Bolivia is the INE and the Banco Central, right?
INE is the official one, because
INE is the official.
by law they are supposed to gather data.
Right.
And to give
So
official
all these
numbers for the country.
institutes work with the same numbers, which are the INE's numbers in Bolivia.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Right. Yeah, those were the numbers for until 2019. Then everybody can give some forecast, right?
Okay.
The World Bank and also the IMF give their number is 6.2 degrees, right?
But Rafael, note that the decrease on the economy in 2020 is harsher with the Banco Central's interpretation than the World Bank's or the United Nations. I mean,
yeah, it is harsh.
Right. We inside Bolivia have diagnosed a worse downturn than the World Bank, right? Yeah, which is interesting because they're not lying. Okay, that's my point. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is way before we had the problems a couple of weeks ago, right? About the blocking roads and all that stuff and the political issues.
Right.
So that's not measured there.
Right.
You said it's from April, right?
Yeah, it's from April and June. World Bank is June.
I guess also before we got hit with the worst of this
the World Bank has a flagship document, global economic outlook. No, I don't remember right now very well the name, but they have a flagship document.
Rafael, one more question.
Yes.
I go back to Paul's question because I think that's very important. Let's put it this way. Samuel Doria Medina had a paper written in 1986, I think, whereby he concludes that the informal economy, but he doesn't talk about the informal, he talks about the drug-related economy, was like 50% the GDP in Bolivia at that time. I spoke to him like 3 years ago and reminded him of his paper. And I asked him, he said, what do you think now the relationship is? And he said, it's probably the same. It's just that the economy is bigger. He says, So that goes back to Paul's question. If this hypothesis would hold true, then what? Do you think it is half the economy, the other half of the formal sector, or not?
No, I don't think so, because I think part of the methodology that they have at INE is like it's survey based. They do surveys to industries about how they are doing with their outputs,
right?
Like for certain variables, but it's mostly formal, I think. But they're supposed to drag the informal economy, so maybe this is just an estimation of how things are doing, or just an indicator, a macroeconomic indicator.
Right.
It's just telling you how.
So it's really hard
how
to tell
it looks like. It's not 100% true.
Sure, but would it be what's the word, prudent, I guess, to assume that the informal economy is also going to contract more or less in the same way?
What I feel about the informal economy is that they have a really large stake in our country. It's like about 70% of employment.
Right.
Right.
And for what you see in what's going on right now is like you have large businesses going bankrupt, closing, firing. But as employers get fired, they are trying to survive. And also you have, certain restaurants are closing. Okay, I used to cook in this restaurant. I'm gonna just try to do delivery from my home. That's informal.
Right. Exactly.
So this makes me think of another question. Or sorry, did you want to add something else there?
No. Well, the same thing with trade, with commerce, right? It's like, okay, I'm gonna just buy from China those masks, the face masks, or also those barriers that you get for
the shields
for the head, right? The shield. So you just try to survive. You have no other way.
A mistake that I think is being made right now is that with the current administration is that they want to create these everybody's in debt right now, and everybody's going deeper and deeper in debt and haven't been paying their electricity bill and their water bill and they're paying it because there's no pressure, because it's not going to get turned off for the time being. And now the government's saying, oh, we're going to, get the banks to create these special loans that you can access very easily to pay your employee payroll. And what I can't imagine right now is how it's advantageous to anybody to go deeper into debt by taking out a bank loan that they're going to have to pay interest on, to pay off. You're going into debt to pay off other debt. I just don't. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Rafael?
Well, I think like if you get a loan, you're supposed to spend the money in something that is gonna be
Productive.
It's gonna give you some kind of income.
Right.
It's an investment.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But for this situation, unless the loan is free, well, it's welcome, right?
But well, if they're not free, at least that's not what I've understood. They're saying, oh, we're going to give you these loans so you can pay off your, because supposedly by law nobody can fire anybody right now, and they have to keep paying their salaries. And after so many businesses have had the doors closed for 3 months or 4 months or however long, at least 3 months in most cases, they aren't paying their employees because they don't have a way, they don't have enough savings to keep payroll. And so if they're saying, okay, we'll take out this loan so you can pay your employees, I just don't understand how that's beneficial to the business anyway. It's beneficial to the employees, I suppose, if if they can get paid, but the business is just taking on more debt. And anyway, I don't know.
Unless you never pay the debt.
Right.
That's why I was telling, like, zero interest. So if it is free, well, welcome.
But no, I mean, I know it's a joke, and I meant it to be a joke, but it's partly true. If you revise the history of Bolivia and the loans in Bolivia, not with small lenders, not with small companies, especially with big companies, man, a large number of the debts have never been paid to the government, to the banks. And the government pays to the banks. That's the history. You look at the history of Santa Cruz, or especially in the agribusiness. That's the way it happened. And I can cite some examples in the last 20 or 30 years, millions of dollars. These people engaged in big businesses, they could never pay, but they always had the excuse to argue to the government or to the bank first that there was no rain, that the economy was in contraction, but that they had invested a lot of equipment in order to strengthen the economic sector of the sugar or the economic sector of cotton. And then, they just ended up not paying because the government finally ended up paying for those loans. And that's how some of the big businesses in Bolivia are still standing up on 2 feet, because they were pardoned. They were pardoned big loans. And my feeling is that what's happening now is going to end up like that too, because like you say, Paul, it's a lot of money, and many of those are small companies. And I think that it's no business for the government to just squash these people, get them out of the economic arena. I think that in the long run, these loans are probably not going to be paid. That's my feeling. I don't know what Rafael thinks about this, but that's my feeling. That's pretty much how Bolivia has behaved in the last 50 years. There are too many loans that have never been paid, and thanks to that, there are some big industries that are still alive.
So basically, they've been bailed out. Is it because the government assumes the debt, or?
No, I think
Sure.
Right now,
Sure.
Who assumes the risk? Because it's a loan, and who's taking the risk? The government or the bank? Because for getting a loan,
the bank never.
You have to talk to the bank and show the bank that the activity or what you're gonna do with the money is gonna give you some kind of income to pay your debt.
Profit.
right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, you have to show them projections.
you have to
growth
show
and those
that.
kinds
And
of
if
things.
you are giving loans and the bank is taking all the risk, it's like the bank is going to lose.
Yeah.
They're not getting any money. So in some part, well, some certain governments around the world have adopted this thing about payrolls. As far as I know, in Colombia, they have done it. And some businesses, particularly in the leisure, hotel, and restaurants. Well, I'm not so sure about restaurants, but for hotel chains, it has worked well because they have given some money to pay payroll for payroll, right? In large hotel chains.
Okay.
And right now it's like hotel chains are just standing and they're opening their economy. Flights are coming in. They have more occupation in their hotels. So kind of that the hotel industry has survived, right? It hasn't closed forever, right?
Should we continue on?
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Well, I have some data about how it has affected the different sectors. This is the guy. It's just a monthly economic indicator that INE publishes. And well, so for the first, a little bit more for the, well, for the first half of the year, it's like communications has grown about 5.1%. The same thing happened to agriculture, public administration, but for the rest, it's like it has doomed, like everything has decreased a lot. Mining has dropped a lot, construction, like, and people were asking like, okay, shall we continue to construct? They have like a building in, I don't know how they call it, like with the very basic structure, right? Said like, so should I finish? No. Some decided just to stay there until things is bad because you have the lockdown measures. Things didn't move. Buses, trade also has closed. Manufacturing, some of them have stopped. Oil and gas is not doing well. Utilities, even though, well, utilities you didn't have to pay power bills or for 3 months, I think. Or no, they lowered for your power bills, right?
Right, but 50% or something.
Yeah,
Right.
for water bills, I think it was the same. And the financial, insurance, and real estate got really hardly hit. And this is one thing that happened way before coronavirus, and I think happened in the US though, because as far as I remember, when Amazon got into the market about buying stuff from internet, you got malls like they got empty. People were not sure what to do with their small stores in malls. And the real estate was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do with this large infrastructure? Because the stores are not opening any soon; they're closing. And the same thing is happened with small businesses that have some trade of food. I think that kind of got restricted because of lockdown measures. So technology had its stake here, had a stake in how the economy has evolved, right? And this is a very harsh lesson for our economy. I'm not sure, hopefully, I just wish that this is gonna continue, that technology is gonna keep pushing forward, and we are gonna get some change because, well, from one side, we have this bad part that some kind of old businesses infrastructure are just falling down. But on the other side, it's like we are getting some kind of efficiency about this, because now it's like we can compare prices online. Like, okay, what kind of products are much cheaper? We can just pay with debit card, credit card, or you can just use Tigo Money or something else. And I just hope that this trend continues. I mean, for the technology implementation, right? Now, not for the negatives there.
Yeah, I get it.
But just in case. And for things that we should be worried, it's like I just try to get how much is the stake or the share for of each sector in the economy. This is what is down in the lower part of the screen. 2019, agriculture is a very, 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 very important sector for our economy. It's about 12.2% of GDP. And then you have financial insurance and real estate, it was like 10.7%, and manufacturing. And as you see, it's like they got affected really bad. Culture right now is threatened because you have that issue about, okay, are you going to employ biotechnology? You're going to use, how you call this? Transgenic seeds or not? Well, there's a very large opposition to use transgenic seeds, maybe so because they find evidence that, well, maybe it affects your health, and things that are, for the moment, for some are just myth, for others are just well, maybe it's the path towards development, because this is going to increase my productivity. I'm going to be able to produce more corn, produce more soybeans, and to have more product to the market and generate more income. That's why we have to look for opportunities to agriculture, ways to make Bolivia's production more efficient, ways to produce more with less capital, maybe less labor. We have to look for ways to increase this production.
I have a question, Rafael.
Yes.
I have a question. In the agriculture sector, it says that the growth has been 4.6%, right?
Right.
Yeah. That agriculture that is growing, I presume, is the export agriculture, right? It's basically soybean.
Yes, and also I think, well, I did a mistake there because it also includes a stock. So you have beef there,
right?
And there.
But it's not. Okay. Oh, okay. But it's basically export or not? Because I think that a lot of the things that we eat in Bolivia are imported, right? Such as potatoes and some rice and stuff. We import a lot of the basic foodstuffs that we consume every day.
Yeah.
And here the growth is 4.6, but my feeling is that's basically exports. Would that be right or not?
We can check because I have a slide for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no
actually, I can just jump for there, and this is how export have behaved. And well, agricultural stock is the green part, and it hasn't grown that much. As you can see, like it has even decreased, but well, this is in prices, right? Prices have a lot to do with this. Maybe I have to take into account the volumes. I don't have the volumes picture here, but at least for prices,
this is price.
It doesn't have much effect. So maybe it's something else. Maybe it's internal consumption, because people, as the pandemic grew, people were trying to look for food. So maybe it's because of that.
Sorry. Would it have to do with the borders actually having closed down? And so Ernesto was saying we consume a lot of imported rice, especially from Brazil, potatoes from Peru, and etc. And so having closed down the borders for at least for a significant period of time would force
to buy our own product.
Right, it would force us to buy locally. So
right.
Interesting. That's probably right. Yeah. And it's surprising to see the amount of export that we have in the mining sector and oil sector, but still those are decreasing sectors.
Those are decreasing. Oil and gas has decreased a lot, right? It's nothing compared to what it was last year. Well, And also you have manufacturing has decreased a bit. Everything has decreased. It's not, here numbers are not compared to the ones that had, the numbers we had last year, right? Until July.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, that's about sectors. I think, well, this is unemployment rate, what we were talking at the beginning, right? It's about 8.64, what they released for the second quarter. So maybe things are getting worse, I'm not sure. And this is how unemployment has behaved during the part of the pandemic, right? This is a difference between quarter 2 and quarter 1 in occupied population. Okay, so urban employment is like, this is the difference between how urban employment was doing between quarter 2 and quarter 1. Here you can see what kind of business have were the most hard hit. And you have commerce, trade is like well, you can tell that those are kind of job losses, because it's the difference between how occupied were sectors, how much were the occupied sectors between quarter 2 and quarter 1. That's the difference. So commerce is the largest loser. Then you have hotel and restaurants and manufacturing. But the biggest winners were agriculture and educational services and public administration as water utilities, because they just continue to work. They just hired more people, at least between these two quarters, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. That's a lot of hiring, though.
Yeah, well, this is in thousand.
In one quarter?
Yeah, that was
it's a lot of hiring. The government is hiring people. Why? What's the point here?
That's weird.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. It's just an indicator of how things were doing well.
It's indeed, there's a lot of politics there, because all these people, it doesn't make sense, Rafael. I mean,
with all the public offices closed, it doesn't. That's a good point, Ernesto.
Well, yeah, that's a good question, and that's something that really got me pissed off before, because you know, I'm myself. It's like I have my ID card, my Bolivian ID card expired since March. And before they started lockdown, I went to the office, I paid the 17 Bolivianos, and the day after they just closed service and closed for 3 months. And then when they reopen, it's like, oh no, you have to do this line, and poof, the line was like 2 blocks from Sahib. So it's unbelievable how the government hasn't adjusted for this kind of situation. I understand that you're not supposed to be in line. That's why they extended the expiration date for your ID card and also your driver's license. But well, if you're gonna open, well, at least do something good and do, I don't know, build a software. At least have somebody at the door with an agenda, just writing down when you're supposed to get when you can get your ID.
I have to wonder
to schedule an appointment, right? So that's what really got me nuts.
No, but this is unbelievable. 3.5%. That's what it is,
no,
right?
1,000.
No, it's not percent.
3,500 people.
This is
okay.
people.
Okay.
But still, if Bolivia is not a big country, think of 3,500 people being out in the public sector. If I had to guess, it has something to do with. It's a guess, right? The like the COED, the what is that? Centro Operativo for Emergencias or something like that.
Yeah, it's what the local government has done for adjusting their measures.
We've had a major emergency, and at least by my house, I saw these COED, the emergency, the I'm not talking about ambulances. I'm talking, they're like, I don't, you call them disaster relief or emergency relief services. I see their vehicles going all over the place. Maybe they're hiring more people. I don't know. The other thing that occurs to me is would this take into account, Rafael, how do you say, consultants, like private consultants for the public sector?
No, I don't think so, because that's services.
Okay.
That should be services. Other services maybe there.
Professional services. Okay.
Yeah, professional services.
Yeah, I don't know.
These are the public works. These are the public works that they used to do in the crisis of 1929, right? You hire people to do whatever, So
Well, we'll get into that. They supposedly, Agnes, I think, said in her speech, or at some point on August 6th, that she wanted to create 10,000. No, it was more than that. It was a higher number than that. 10,000. It was more than 10,000 jobs in the public sector.
Yeah, but I don't think they're doing it in the public sector, because public sector is kind of restrained. They have
they have no money.
There's no money. It's like right now, if you have a bond for everything, you're giving cash transfers for everything. Regardless of the reason, you're giving transfers. You have a very large expenditure from the government, and they're not receiving any taxes. They're not. They have just deferred. They have tax deferrals. Some people might not even be able to pay the tax that they just deferred. So you have very big, difficult situation for local governance, like how you call it, local, like cities, municipalities. How they're gonna get some money from the taxpayers if they're not earning anything
on any level? The one that,
and the same thing happens with the central government, right? It's like we used to get income from the sale from the oil and gas, from gas resources, right? But right now it's like things are not doing well with that.
One that calls my attention is the e-way. I guess in English you'd call that it's a tax that you pay once a year in April. I think it's in April. Or maybe it's different for each business. The way you pay in April, right? You're supposed to. Yeah, it's the tax on your it's the tax on your profit. Thank you, Ernesto. The tax on profits. It is a huge tax. I think it's 25%. So to have that hit in April, and they keep deferring it, putting it off, and then they said you're going to have to pay it in September. I can't imagine this government with the president running as a candidate that they're going to try to charge that 25% profit tax in September with elections in October. And what implications does that have? How many businesses are closing and going bankrupt over the past 6 months that never paid it, and now they're going to pay it now?
Yeah. I think maybe the worst thing you can do is just to extend a measure, but way too much. Also, I mean that for a short term, maybe 2 or 3 months, it was good. But if you do it for too long, it's just you have a problem there, and it's behavioral problem. I don't remember how they call this. There's a name, and it has its name in economics. Moral hazard.
Right.
It's moral hazard. It's like, okay, they're gonna extend 1 more year, and the last thing I'm gonna do is gonna be pay taxes, they could say.
My assumption is that they're gonna put it off until after there's a new president elected, and leave that problem on the new president's shoulders, because it's having a business. The e-way is a terrible thing when it comes around and you have to pay it, and much more so in this situation for so many people, for so many businesses.
Right.
Yeah, well, there's some proposals about
political point.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some proposals about lowering it.
I've heard they were talking about you could pay it in installments. I guess we'll see. But yeah, it's been very quiet. I haven't seen any news or any announcements about it. And supposedly, we're in September on Monday, right? Or on Tuesday? And
Tuesday.
Tuesday, thanks. So, and I haven't seen them say anything. And like I said, if Miss Agnes wants to wants to win an election, I can't see her putting that upon businesses to have to pay it in September. Anyway, sorry, that's.
Well,
But did you see the masses campaign? Mr. Arce, he's proposing a tax, an income tax, basically.
But
He says it's for the rich.
On the richest of the rich, but he didn't give any specifics.
you know,
A tax on your patrimony, right?
yeah,
The word patrimony?
equity, I think it's called.
Equity or
Equity,
patrimony?
right,
Equity?
that's
Is it okay? You guys' English is better than mine.
Yeah, but you know, as soon as he said that, you could go to Evo Morales' page, and it's like everybody complained, even maybe even his followers, because you would see what the replies to that kind of posts he has. It's like, no, how come, and things like that, right? It doesn't have too much reception from the public.
Yeah.
Why, I don't know. But even from his followers, it's like, there are no, what are you saying? But
Because
well,
they never pay taxes, man. The mass people they never pay taxes. Especially the guys in the Chapare, man. They make a lot of money and they don't pay a dime. So
well, I'm not sure about that. But what if you're gonna kind of have these kind of measures, if you are gonna apply a tax, at least be transparent. What I say is like, just give something to the public. Just try to be more efficient. Be a government that can administer, that can manage money well. That
Right,
you're
you
not
just
gonna spend in.
look at countries like Canada or in Europe that they have a pretty huge tax burden, but the public services there's no comparison. You know?
No comparison.
Excellent. So
right.
people don't have most people don't have an issue with it. You know, there's a return on that. Whereas in Bolivia, we have a huge tax burden, huge, at least for businesses. And what do you get back? The public schools are awful. The health sector is awful. The public infrastructure, roads are awful. Internet's, I mean, come on. You know, what are you getting back?
You don't get your idea on time.
Yeah, it's
you have to reduce bureaucracy. You have to give something in exchange, right? It's not about taxing, and also you have to tell people with transparency how you're going to spend that money. I mean, what are you planning to do with that new task?
Well, Arce Catacora said something about using that money to sorry, I wish I had the article on hand. Something about it, you know, for industrializing or creating more jobs in industry. Go ahead.
What I mean is that he proposed a tax, and that's a very unpopular thing to propose in a campaign, right? In a political campaign, if you propose the increase of taxes, usually you won't get a vote. But the way he proposes it is very political, because he says
tax the rich.
The people that are the rich, the very rich, are going to be taxed. Mm-hmm. You are not going to be taxed.
So but he was very vague in saying who is encompassed, because he said it's a tax on your equity or on your net worth. And so where's the threshold? Where's the threshold? My net worth. What if I don't have any loans with the bank, but I have a house that's worth, I don't know, $20,000, which can be a case for a lot of people. They could have inherited a house and that their net worth is whatever their house is worth, and then they have to pay a tax on it.
Right.
You know, if there's he didn't say there's a threshold. He says it's going to affect the rich more, but it might affect everybody. So yeah, you're right. It's not popular.
But that's exactly what he means, because people in Bolivia don't have shares in the stock market. What they do have is houses here. Mm-hmm. So the tax is going to be over houses. What else? You know, people do not own stocks. They don't own. I don't know, oil companies. They don't own even mining companies, you know. It's just people own this, they own houses. Where else can you tax people in their equity?
True.
Who are the big owners in Bolivia?
What's that?
I'm asking, I really don't have an answer, because the big owners may be big enterprises in Santa Cruz that have agriculture sector. Okay, that's one big owner. And probably some mining too in the Occidente. But as far as the hydrocarbons business, that's state business, and whatever enterprises there are, they're foreign companies, and they have been taxed very heavily in the last 20 years. So I don't know what he's thinking about, but yeah, he has to be more precise, and I think it's a good point to ask him, right? What is he thinking about it? But like Rafael says, he's not answering, so it's really a not very wise thing to do to offer charging people more taxes in a campaign. I still think that's not a very, very smart thing to do in the middle of crisis.
Probably what they can do later is just adjust the taxes that we have already, right? It's like, okay, we are gonna check on how to arrange or rearrange the UEI, or I don't know, the VAT tax. Let's see if we can make difference between certain products, or I don't know, how are they gonna make the workaround, right? Because income, the government is income. And for next year, it's most likely that there's gonna be a lot of fiscal pressures to pay the expenditure that we are making this year to pay coronavirus, right?
Yeah,
you're right.
That's
yeah.
Good. I don't know. I really feel I don't understand how anybody wants to be president of this country right now.
No, it's not
It's
only the country.
Don't forget.
It's not only the country. It's everywhere. Everywhere they had the same problems. Everywhere.
Sure, but don't forget that the problem of income is of the government, not of the government authorities. Because in government, you can always buy respiradores and get an overprice that is not going to the government, but is going to the people of government's pockets, man. That's why they want to be there. There's a lot of corruption here. That's what I mean. And people like that because that's where you make a lot of money, man. And I think that's everywhere.
Needs to be taken care. Corruption is a very big issue here. And that's why I'm telling you, if you're planning to do this kind of fiscal measures, at least do some cleaning with the government and be transparent, show everything. One thing that about government transparency as well, and it's very important to tell, is that during the period that the movement of socialism was in charge, and you had as President Evo Morales, it was like they would hide the statistical data. In a way, published data that was from 3-4 years ago, and they just started they just stopped to publish that indicator that I just showed about the monthly economic indicator, because the numbers were not good for them. Well, at least they just stopped, but they didn't tell us how the economy was doing. There was very little information about how the economy was performing during that period of time. And just the good thing that is happening right now is like I think the change of administration was really good towards it, because now it's like we have up-to-date data. You have this economic indicator to June or July, I don't know. But there's much more information in a timely manner. That's really good. Well, there are things that need to be taken care as well, because there's other data that is not available. And as far as I know, there's no data about how much were the collections for the tax collection for each type of tax for last year. Like you're not gonna be able to find data from 2019 about how much were the collections for the VAT tax or EVA or UE. You cannot get that data till now. You go to the revenue service, Internal Revenue Service of Bolivia, and you're gonna have data from 2018 about how much they collected by tax, but for 2019 they have nothing. So that was something to to criticize
And what,
about how.
and that wasn't the case before with the MAS?
Yeah, that was the case with MAS.
It was worse.
So well, it was worse with the MAS, which kind of surprised me because the revenue, the Internal Revenue Service here always kind of bragged about what a good job they were doing and and how much, you know, how much.
No, you go, just go right now
collecting.
to the Internal Revenue website, and you will see how they did last year for by each tax.
Interesting.
There's a lack of transparency, I think, that needs to be taken care of. Yeah.
Difficult.
Well, I had some data. If you want me to move on with the presentation.
No, keep going through it. Keep going. I mean, you know, the idea here is to kind of get a overall picture.
Well, here's some data about imports. You have food and beverage. Well, most imports have declined a lot. That's why there were periods of time where, on a monthly basis, there were how you call this, trade balance or plus. And this was because we were not able to make imports of machinery during the beginning of the lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And this was kind of good for how you call this thing, for foreign exchange reserves, because no dollars would come out from the country, right, as things were locked down.
Right.
Mm.
But still, what we should be worried is that a drop of import means that production is dropping as well. And
Production.
It means that, it means that particularly capital goods, if it drops, it's because companies are not investing in machinery. That means that also their production is lower.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be worried about that too. And this is how trade balance has behaved during the last 30 years, right? And since 2014 we have a negative trade balance, and mainly because exports were less than imports, right? And that's another reason why our foreign exchange reserves are lower. This is one factor too. Dollars are coming out from that country. And if you check for data for how between January and July of this year compared to last year is much lower, right? As you can see in the last two bars there. And here is foreign exchange reserves, how it has behaved since 2018. And yeah, it has dropped a lot since 2014 due to the commodity prices as well, due to the fall in commodity prices, right? And what they're telling us right now is that foreign exchange reserves are stable. They are not dropping much more. And this is because, pardon? Yeah, due to exports.
There are no imports.
Mm-hmm. There are no imports. Yeah. So that's kind of balanced the thing. And some economists, they just think that probably might rebound because as soon as we get the credits from the IMF and all the things that the current presidency is doing, the current president is doing, probably this will increase a bit more. But
see,
we will get some dollars from that.
My feeling, Rafael, is as follows. This is the official numbers. That's correct. But if you go any day and get into a supermarket, into an Hipermaxi, or if you go to a mall, you see a lot of people there, and a lot of people buying things. It's not. I know that I probably double your age, but I have been in this country in crisis, right? And I've been in the crisis, and the worst crisis that there was in my lifetime, which was 1982 85, right? That's when the hyperinflation took place here. During the hyperinflation, you could not see people buying like you see today. People didn't have money, period. You know, and you could, that's something that you could see. It's not something perceived in a chart.
Mhm.
You know, here we are perceiving the economy in a chart. We are looking at terrible numbers.
Mhm.
In 1985, you didn't need to see a chart. You needed to open your door, and the chart was out there. People didn't have any money to buy anything. All the markets were terrible. You know, there were no supermarkets at the time, but people, I mean, you could see poverty. Today, you don't see that here. In fact, if you go out any day and see the Hypermaxis and the ICE and whatever, they're full of people and people are buying this stuff, you know. My feeling is that it is what we began talking about, you know, that the informal sector, especially the drug money here, is a lot of money. And yes, I think that the recuperation is going to be fast too, because the demand is there. I think that people do have money to demand. You open stores and they're buying it, you know. If the economy was really in such a bad shape, demand wouldn't exist there. My feeling is that, I don't know how you feel that, but I can compare crises. The crisis of 1985 has nothing to do with this crisis. And apparently this is a worse crisis because this is a worldwide crisis. It's a health crisis. But still, I see people with money purchasing things. In 1985, which was not a worldwide crisis, it was a crisis in Latin America, but especially in Bolivia. No, it was terrible. People didn't have any money. You could see that. You know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Maybe probably because crisis from 1985, 86, it was like it took time to get to that crisis, because during that period of time, during the previous years, things were getting worse year by year, right? Like there were certain things about there were certain events that had weakened the economy on the previous years. It was like a timeline.
Right. It was a structural crisis.
Yeah, it was structural. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's why the deepest we got, it was that you wouldn't get money, and there was a lot of unemployment. Inflation was extremely high. We have hyperinflation at the time. So right. many during the previous years, there were many things that got us to that point. But right now it's like probably, no, I'm not sure. Probably we're at the beginning of the crisis, or probably this is gonna be momentarily, we don't know. But
that's a good point.
For 2021, I don't know. We have to be careful. Maybe next year is gonna hit us a little bit more hard, because I'm not sure if this disease is not controlled and we are not able to find our own economic growth path. If we have to make the structural change that we need to do, we're gonna be in trouble. If the disease is gonna continue, we're gonna get another new waves of the disease. Is something that you cannot treat or effectively, and it's something that we cannot live with. We're gonna be in trouble.
Can I ask you a question, Rafael?
Yeah.
Based on a couple of hypotheticals. One, let's say the disease, let's say COVID-19 is. I have a theory, and I think I suspect it's correct from what we keep seeing in terms of the measures being lifted, is that at least Bolivia is in a situation where we're approaching a herd immunity, and that we've kind of got this under control, right? Assuming that there's not a high rate of reinfection or reincidencia, I guess it's reinfection, and that, you know, and again, that's why I think that we're starting to see things open back up, is and if we get the vaccination sometime in the middle of next year, basically, we've got it under control to a certain extent, right? With the pandemic. In the second hypothetical, what if you were the next minister of of economics, or the economic minister? What would you do?
Well, first we need to look for money. We need to look for funding. We need to look what our people are gonna do.
Money from tax revenue or from loans?
We need to look at both, unlikely, because people are right now, they don't have income, they don't have money. Maybe some people still have savings, but those are not eternal, right? Every day you are alive, you're supposed to buy your own food and make some kind of basic expenditures. So probably you can apply taxes. Maybe you can tax the rich, as this guy, as Arce said, right? But still, like, are you gonna invest it in what? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna be more efficient? Are you gonna give education to people? One of the key points that I would like to make is that we truly need to make good investments. We have to invest in our human capital. We have to give people education. We have to, and it's not about giving education. Okay, this guy, I'm gonna pay him 200 bolivians or 500 bolivians. I don't remember how much is the
Bono Juancito Pinto.
Bono Juancito Pinto. Okay, and he's gonna sit down there and he's gonna hit the seat for a year, right? No, it's about you're gonna have to have a good teacher, teacher, and he's gonna take your exam, and you have to perform well, right? Your performance has to be good, and also the program has to be good. You have to learn about how you call this, the STEAM science. You have to study math, you have to study physics, you have to study statistics. I mean, you have to get a good quality of education. And I believe that the level of education has to improve a lot. And we have to give more opportunity to poor income people, right? It's like, okay, you have to get the opportunity to see the world. Let's try to make some kind of exchange between students from rural areas.
Okay.
Let's tell them to. Yeah.
That's a long, that you can look at an investment in human capital, in education.
That's a long term. That's 10
long
years,
term,
right?
but like an impulse to get the economy back on track in the short term.
That's much harder than you may think.
I mean, Rafael, I have the following feelings. As I said before, I think the money is here. I think that especially the money of drugs and the money of the informal sector are here. I don't think there is a crisis as big as there was in 1985. That's visible. I can feel that.
Sorry to interrupt. Was there a recession? Was there a recession in those years, Rafael?
Yeah, the worst of all. Inflation, yearly inflation.
There was inflation. That's
was not.
Here we go. Okay.
8,000%.
It doesn't go back that far.
In 1985. Okay.
Yeah, no, but just to, I'm only asking the question to have like a comparison of what if there was a negative GDP.
No.
As compared to what the projections are for this year, 6%. That's all.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ernesto, I didn't mean to continue.
My feeling is that the money is here. It's not. It hasn't eroded. You know, the informal sector money and the drug money is here. The point, I think, is to convert that money, which is in the informal sector, to transfer it to the formal sector. I think that's the big challenge that the next government will have if they pose the problem as I'm doing. You know, but I don't know if they will, because people don't think about that. You know, they just think that all the informal sector and the drug money has to be out there somewhere out there. You know, they don't care about that. But my feeling is that the money is in Bolivia, the money is here, and that money has to be transferred to the legal sector. And you need to get the incentives for people to do that. I don't know what the incentives are, but you need because taxing is not an incentive, right? If you're going to be taxed, then why do I become legal? Why do I become formal in order to pay taxes? My feeling is that taxes have to be lower in order for people to pay taxes. One of the reasons the universe of taxpayers in Bolivia is small, because it is very small, Paul, no? Mm-hmm. Comparatively speaking to other countries. Few people pay taxes here. It's just you, Rafael, and me that pay taxes here. The rest of the people, our neighbors, they don't pay a cent because they are in the informal sector and they don't pay anything. Not even the people in the Chapari pay, and they have a lot of money. But that's because the system is badly constructed. The system is built in terms of charging high taxes. That's no incentive to pay taxes. If the VAT would be 8%, as it is in most states in the U.S., people would probably be more liable to pay that. If your earnings, not earnings, but if EUA at the end of the year would not be 25%, and it would be 15%, more people would be willing to have a formal business. But that's not the case in Bolivia. We go exactly on the opposite situation. We charge more taxes, and more taxes, the only thing that produces is that the only people that are going to be paying more taxes is Paul, Rafael, and Ernesto, because the rest of the guys are never going to get involved in the formal sector. And I think that's exactly the wrong way to do it, and it's the wrong approach from the candidate of the MAS to point fingers and say, these guys are going to pay more, because for a rich person, it's very easy to get away. If I would have $50 million, do you think I would have them in Bolivia? Especially after hearing Arce? Of course not. I'm going to get that money and put that money wherever, I don't know where, but somewhere in the world they would accept my money. Except in Bolivia, they want to charge me more taxes. So the rich people don't have problems, because all of a sudden, if you have $50 million in Bolivia, those $50 million will probably appear in the Bahamas or appear in some other country where it's welcome, where people welcome money. So now, definitely taxes are not. A government needs to handle tax policy in such a way as to incentivize people to pay taxes and not run away from that. If you increase taxes, all you'll get is a very small number of people paying taxes and the rest not paying, which is what's happening. But my feeling is that there is money here, but the money is just in the informal sector.
There were some proposals for that, I think. Actually, some countries apply it during this lockdown. It was like tax-free day. You don't pay bad taxes for one day. And it had a really good reception. In Colombia, they did it. And it had a really good reception, because this was like just when business opened, because business were forced to close, they opened and they started with this, and they just sold all the stock they had accumulated from that period of time, right? You could find very cheap things, very cheap things during that time. And also you would put at the same level to the informal, right? You would, your price would be really comparable to the price that you had here in Barrio Lindo, let's say in the informal market, right? Or La Cancha, Cochabamba. So you kind of have this advantage, right? And also, what I know is that there was a proposal for giving a tax break to entrepreneurs. I mean, to people that were just starting a business, that they had an idea and would become formal, right? I think it's about a three-year tax exemption or something. It just came out. So that's kind of gonna help, but still, well, for a beginner, maybe a tax break is a really good. I think they gave a tax break for beginners, right? For people that were just starting a business, and for someone who is just starting a business, it's good, because I don't have to to pay taxes. I don't have too much capital. My capital is very small. And also, it's that the government is not gonna receive much money from what he's giving, right? Because he's just started. His capital is small anyway. So that's a really good help that the government has decided to implement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was about that measure, right?
Is there anything else in your presentation that you want to?
Yeah, I have 3 more slides. We can just go over quickly.
Go ahead. Yeah. And then we can wrap this up afterwards.
Yeah, we can wrap up.
Oh, tax. Good.
Yeah, this is what right now, what Ortiz published a couple of days ago, how tax collections are doing. And he said like it's way low. What they do, they just publish the aggregate, they don't disaggregate. And that's what I was complaining about like before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, this is like we have to care about how much also the government is gonna get and how the government is gonna, where the government is gonna get the money to make the public investment, right? How is it gonna get money for fixing roads or providing basic services such as water, things that need to be financed anyway, right? Just imagine that Santa Cruz doesn't get water because a very large pipe broke and nobody has paid their power bills or their water bills. That could be a very difficult situation, right? And the same thing happens with roads. And this is about fiscal deficit. Parada, this is his presentation, or a slide from his presentation. He said like we are about the fiscal deficit to 2019 is about 7.2% of GDP, which is quite large. And they have lowered a bit because unluckily last year we had the 21 days and well, unluckily, we had the 21 days and everything stopped there, right? So they were not able to do any public investment and spend money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they lowered. But we had this kind of very large fiscal deficit. I think Argentina was around 11 or something. So for next year, they have to find a way to cut expenses. And that's why I'm telling that the government has to make some cuts, and they have to take advantage of technology, try to mechanize, try to implement the digital government, right? Just try to adjust, make the adjustments necessary that they can perform efficiently. I think that is efficiency government sounds quite weird, but they have to do it if they want to make cut, and they don't want to
sorry to cut you off. I think there needs to be a political calculation here for the candidates when they consider this, because we all know that one thing politicians do is they try to give jobs to people, right, in the public sector. The Mas increased the public payroll. There's double the number of employees in the public payroll between the time Evo got into office and 14 years later when he left. And we all know why. It's very unpopular too to cut jobs in government, right?
Yeah.
Especially now with the economic crisis we're facing and going to be facing. But at the same time, what you just said, Rafael, and something we've talked about in conversation, is that this was the golden opportunity, is the golden opportunity to look at a way to streamline bureaucracy and to digitalize, platforms, so that you don't have to go get in line at an office and go to one window and go to the next window. And so when I say it's a political, how many people are going to be looking at in terms of the benefits of government jobs, or are going to be looking at, I'd rather have my life be made much easier by being able to do these processes online and not having to go sit in a line and go to a window and talk to one person and talk to another. I'd rather just be able to get on my computer, on my phone, and take care of a lot of these services. And I think it's a miscalculation by most. My inclination is to say that the candidates at this point are afraid to say, "Oh, we're going to cut government jobs," to be more fiscally responsible, because they're afraid that that's going to lose them votes. But they're not looking at the other side of the coin of saying, we're going to streamline all these bureaucratic processes and put them on online platforms so that the population at large can benefit enormously from this. None of them have been that smart, and I don't understand why. But anyway,
the point is,
sorry.
Where do you put the people that get unemployed? That's the point.
Yeah.
But I mean, you fire them.
It's a cost benefit.
And then what do you do with them?
It's a cost benefit.
It's a cost benefit. Let's say you lose. Let's say.
No. I bet.
Go ahead.
Let me explain myself. This is something that we have seen in Bolivia before. It happened. It's not new. And you have seen in the States also. It happened. It's not new. In crisis. In 1985, we fired from government thousands of people. Yeah. Especially in the mining sector, because Comibol, which was the only mining sector, a company in the state, produced losing money for years. The cost of production was, I don't know, 9, I think, and the price was 2. They were losing 7, and that happened for many years. Mm-hmm. So when the 1985 government came in, the MNR, what we did is we basically kicked them out of their jobs, all these people. And of course, there was nowhere to go. And where they ended up landing is in El Chapare. The Chapare is exactly the result of the correction of the economy of 1985. Because all those guys in El Chapare were former miners. Basically, all of them were former miners from Oruro and Potosí. And they became agricultures, and finally they became drug producers, right? And there's Evo Morales, one of the main figures of that transplantation of people in Bolivia.
Yeah.
But see, that's a drama, because once you kick them out, I mean, in the world crisis of 1929, what they did in the States is exactly the contrary to that. They hired people in public works, because they needed people to have money in order to buy things, in order to have the demand. You encourage the demand. That was Keynes.
My understanding was that
thesis,
but in public works, in construction, in infrastructure, right?
Sure.
In infrastructure. But I'm afraid it's going to happen.
But not. That was not the point, Paul. I'm sorry. They hired people to pick leaves in the parks.
Fine.
Pick leaves in the parks. That was the example. Yes.
What I don't want is to when I go to say HEAP, instead of having to go to 5 different windows to get my ID card, I'm going to have to go to 6 or 7. That's what I'm getting at. If the government has the means to hire people and put them to work to collect leaves, clean up parks, do things to improve infrastructure, that'd be ideal, I guess. I don't know what Rafael has to say. But what I would not accept,
I'm not.
But what I'm saying is that we can't put people to work creating more bureaucracy. Bolivia is already a bureaucratic nightmare. People, I've seen the statistics, and people in Bolivia the average Bolivian spends a crazy amount of his or her lifetime, standing in a line somewhere at a public office compared to other countries in the world. So that's what I'm getting at, is that, a job in the public sector doesn't necessarily have to create more bureaucracy and red tape for the average Bolivian to carry on his or her daily life. And that's what I'm saying, is if they can get rid of jobs, sorry. And I'm sure a lot of the people in
I see your point.
Were in administrative positions, they weren't in the mines themselves.
Oh no, they were miners. They were miners, and they ended up in a Chapare.
Okay.
I guess, but the majority were miners. The Chapare is made up of them.
Okay.
There was no people in the Chapare before that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a non non-populated area. The Chapare people all come from the mining sector of Potosí and Oruro because they had no employment.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole point is what do you do when you kick people out of their jobs? You need to have some. The private sector has to have an incentive to hire them. One, they have to be people that have some skill. Otherwise, they will not hire them. You wouldn't hire somebody in your business that doesn't know to do anything, you know?
Yeah.
So that's tough because many of the people that get out of government jobs probably do not have good skills. But okay, that's one problem. The second problem is who's going to hire them? You need to have businesses in order to, otherwise you have more unemployment and you end up with a larger underemployment, which is what we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm for you. Less government is best, of course. I'm for that. But I'm also realistic. What do you do with those people? Especially non-skilled, and there are a lot of non-skilled people in this country.
What do you
That's
say,
the problem of a government. Yes, you're right.
This makes me think of another question, and it's for anybody who has a business. The labor laws in Bolivia only contemplate full-time employment. There's no such thing as a part-time job in Bolivia,
Mm-hmm.
at least on paper. Okay, and so
Right.
would this not be the opportunity to restructure the labor laws, to create the opportunity for businesses that aren't in a position to hire on a bunch of full-time employees right now, but are willing to pay people, let's say, by the hour?
Right. No, you're right. I'm for you. The problem is it's hard to do that because all these sindicatos are very strong and they go out to the streets and they generate a lot of turmoil. But yeah, I'm for you. I think that one of the hurdles of unemployment is the law. The Ley General del Trabajo is a big problem in this country. Many people don't hire assistants because they don't want to face all the problems that this law brings up. Many businesses have run down to bankruptcy because of that law. Not one, many businesses have faced bankruptcy because they ended up with employees which they couldn't fire, or if they fired, they would have to pay them an X amount of money, and they didn't have the money to do that, you know. And if you don't pay in 15 days, Paul, if you don't pay in 15 days, you have a 30% multa. Yes, it's terrible. It's terrible, you know. So yeah, you're right. The whole point is that
what I'm foreseeing. What I'm foreseeing, sorry to cut you off, is that given the situation, and there are tons of people losing their jobs right now. I'm not going to say I'm friends with many people who work at one of the most prestigious schools in Santa Cruz, and on Wednesday, I think it was, the teachers who've been working since the school opened more than a decade ago were just fired without any notice. And so what Rafael said earlier in the program was that we're only starting to see the beginning of the economic repercussions of the pandemic, and that we're going to have so many people out of work, that they're going to be willing to accept, before the Ministerio de Trabajo always took the side of the employed. And the employer would say, oh, no, you have to pay me my severance pay within 15 days, and you have to and it was so hard to fire anybody, even if you had to, even if the employer was in the right. Whereas now there's going to be so many people out of work, and the Ministerio de Trabajo, the Ministry of Employment, is going to be so inundated with cases that they're going to face collapse or years and years of backed up cases, that everybody's going to have to sit down at the table and revamp the law, because people are going to need to work. I've had people come to me at my business and say, pay me half of the minimum wage, because I need income, and they're desperate. And so that's what we're facing right now. So anyway.
Oh, you're right, and I think it will happen too, but it will not happen through the legal means. The laws won't change. Again, I'm sorry.
You think it's going to go informal?
Yeah, no. This happened before. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay.
In 1985, when the crisis was so bad, this is exactly what happened. What you're relating to us is exactly what happened. Your chronicle happened here. And that was, I don't know if you heard about 21060, the
Yes.
Supreme Decree.
Uh-huh.
Right. If you look at Supreme Decree 21060, it's a neoliberal policy, especially neoliberal policy in terms of employment, because all the legalities about the general law of the worker, the Ley General del Trabajo, were in a way negated by the 21060. That's why workers always said, that's an illegal decree, and it probably is. But that's how Bolivia worked from 1985 until 2000 and something, because what you're saying exactly happened. The reality of life is that if I have no income, I'll work for half of the income I had before. If my employer cannot pay me all my severance, then it's okay. I'll wait. I'll negotiate with him. He'll pay me in installments or whatever. That's economy. That's economics. And I think in the end, that's what will prevail. It happened here in 1985. And that's 21060.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to go under a new process, very similar to that one, I think, in terms of labor policy, because labor policy is definitely unapplicable in Bolivia. It's too tough, but it's also unchangeable, I think, in terms of going to Congress and changing the law. I think that's just not possible to do, at least as I see things now. But it will happen. In fact, it will happen, and there will be a decree or something. Things will work out because it has to happen. It happened in 1985. 21060 is exactly an answer to your qualms in terms of labor policy. Yeah.
We'll give the floor back to Rafael.
Right. Well, yeah, it's quite difficult what to do with unemployment, and also with what's going to happen to the people that work in the public office, right? I really don't have an answer to this, but I guess the government can give some kind of support to maybe the support that they are trying to give for entrepreneurs is gonna just try to push these people to work, to move to another sector, right? I don't know. That could be one measure to lower unemployment. That those startups are gonna grow, hopefully, and they're gonna get to hire more people. And also, there's a lot of debate about changing those labor laws that we have here in Bolivia, and to give more opportunity about part-time jobs. For some period of time, internships were banned from office right now, because I think they were like asking for a lot of. They were treating internships as a job. You were supposed to give them what is this health insurance, and also yeah. So that was that was a little bit of that became an expenditure for the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which can be seen good, can be seen bad, because it represents an expenditure for the person who's hiring, but also it represents a new worker, right, for your company. Like the intern is gonna do some work for your company in trade.
Mm-hmm.
It needs some adjustments. The law, I think, is from the 50s, as far as I remember. It has a long time, and it has been a long time that it has been enacted. And I guess it's gonna change sometime. Right now it's like we are having some very weird movements, things that are happening right now in the world, and probably it's gonna make some changes to our policies for next year. Yeah, I think this is the last slide I have. Yeah. Okay. If you want me to go through it, this is how the entrepreneurial base has grown during the last during the first part of the term until July. It has grown a bit. It seems that there is still some confidence about doing business here in Bolivia. And for what I see is that on the right, you have a table that shows what kind of activities have the most registrations in this base.
Mm-hmm.
And you can identify that there's a lot of freight and storage. And maybe this is due to deliveries, probably. Probably there's a lot of new companies that decided to do delivery. And what else we have here? There is a bit of construction and also trade. So this is those percentages are just shares of the new registration, right? If you see registration are not that much compared to last year, there's a bit, and those were the shares.
Okay.
So I think that's it. And well, what to expect about 2021? Well, I think it's gonna be a very challenging year. It's gonna be rough. So as I was telling before, it was countries might still looking ways to balance their fiscal accounts while looking for funding, and also for new expenditures in order to control the new waves of coronavirus, or spent in programs towards the vaccine. As you know, Bolivia will not be done with politics. This is just the beginning. The elections that we have here in October is just for presidential. Next year we have elections for mayors and also governors.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know when, but we're not done with politics. We're gonna get some movements for this, right? And also there has to be fiscal adjustments. This is gonna make noise. Not right now, but next year, like maybe in January, when things are a little bit more settled and we know what's gonna be or what's gonna happen with coronavirus, or we have some insight about it. Well, I said already, we need to vote for local authorities, and also there's gonna be an increase in poverty. That's inevitable. That's gonna happen, I guess. So probably if activities don't get back to normal as the activities as we know it, poverty is going to increase. And we are heading back to government programs, international programs on how to help to reduce poverty. Well, as time will tell, I guess. I think that's the wrap up I have about this long presentation.
Right.
But hopefully 2021 is not gonna hit us as hard as right now. This year hasn't been good at all as well, because we have many people that have lost their lives. We have friends that have lost relatives. I lost a friend who was a doctor here at the how you call that, Caja Petrolera, and he was almost my age. For what I'm really surprised. I have friends and colleagues who have lost their parents, their grandparents, neighbors who have lost family, and just praying for my family as well, for that this thing is not gonna affect us, at least our health, right?
I don't think there's anybody I've talked to in Bolivia who has not been affected directly by losing somebody within the family or close to them at this point.
Right.
It's fair. It's a tough one. But I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that the worst is behind us, and doesn't say that people are, you know, right, that we're not going to keep seeing deaths. That's a given. You know, I think at a much lower scale, but I think the worst is behind us, and I don't know what else to say. I have to say thank you, Rafael, for such an I can tell you spent a good amount of time doing this, and I appreciate
wasn't mine.
Nah, you say that, but everything shows the contrary. And it's valuable to be able to see these kinds of statistics in such a concise and summarized way pertaining to Bolivia. That it's not every day that you get to see something like that. So I thank you. And
No, definitely.
and anything you guys want to add to close before we?
I had never seen anybody like Rafael attending a program and having such an excellent exposition of what he's going to say. I really just reiterate what Paul has said about your presentation, Rafael. It has been really meticulously done and in a very professional manner. So thank you very much. When you just started speaking, Rafael, at the outset of the program, I laughed about something, but I'll explain my laugh. You mentioned that you studied at the UPD and then you got your master's in the University of Champaign in Illinois. The reason I laughed is because I had a very good friend and I visited that university way back in 2 centuries ago. And it just, the world is very small, as we always speak with Paul. We end up finding people that somewhere is related to us, but I never thought that you went to the University of Illinois in Champaign. That's a very good college, by the way. It's a very important university. And
I spent 5
a very
years
nice
there.
campus. Yeah.
I spent 5 years of my life there, and it was a really nice place. It was like kind of far from Chicago. You don't get the traffic, and it was like very, very, very good urban life there. Like you will get everything around, and it was a really nice place to study as well. It had everything.
Definitely, yeah. It's a good school. It's a very good school. Yeah. So yeah, that's the reason I left, because I never thought that you would be there. You know, I had been there because of my friend, and it's funny. I used to go to the gym. I never went to school there. I used to go there during breaks, and since I used to do athletics, so when I went there,
Cersei, I think it was called.
I used to go to.
Yeah. They had a very large stadium there, and also the gym was huge. Yeah. They renovated, I think, like 10 years ago, but right now I think it must be much bigger. There were a lot of developments lately, and you would see buildings there right on Green Street. It's incredible.
Well, great knowing you, and thank you very much for your
presentation.
Thank you, Rafael. It was really fantastic.
No, you're welcome, and thank you for having me in your program.
All right. Well, that's it, everybody. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Have a nice weekend.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.